Growing Up Weightless by John M. Ford, 1993. This book almost did not exist. Let me explain. 5 years ago, Isaac Butler wrote an article for Slate magazine, The Disappearance of John M. Ford. I wanted to learn why a beloved science fiction writer fell into obscurity after his death. I didn't expect that I would help to bring his books back to life. John M. Ford passed away in 2006 at the age of 49. So the question, how could a beloved author fall out of print when passing away less than 20 years ago, is an interesting question. It brings to mind other authors such as Bob Shaw. Let's take a look at what Isaac Butler discovered. By the way, I'll put a link in the description for this video to the article on Slate. 3 years ago, that would be 2016, over breakfast, my friend Helen handed me a novel about a quest that, unknown to both of us, would set me off on a quest of my own. The book was called The Dragon Waiting, and it was written by the late science fiction and fantasy author John M. Ford. Helen placed the mass-market paperback with its garish cover in my hands, her eyes aglow with evangelical fervor, telling me I would love it. I would soon learn that, owing to Ford's obscurity, his fans do things like this all the time. Soon, I would become one of them. The Dragon Waiting is an unfolding cabinet of wonders. Over a decade before George R.R. Martin wrote A Song of Ice and Fire, Ford created an alternate history retelling the Wars of the Roses, filled with palace intrigue, dark magic, and more Shakespeare references than are dreamt of in our philosophy. The Dragon Waiting provokes that rare thrill that one gets from the work of Gene Wolfe or John Crawley or Ursula Le Guin. A dazzling intellect ensorcels the reader, entertaining with one hand, opening new doors with another. I wanted to buy a copy, but it was out of print. At the time, used copies of this mass-market paperback from 1985 started at $200 on Amazon. It's currently much more affordable. John M. Ford had other books that were not available at all, even as used copies. How had a writer this good fallen into this level of obscurity? The more I looked into Ford's career, the more frustrating and mystifying his posthumous invisibility came to seem. Ford had won the Philip K. Dick Award and multiple World Fantasy Awards. He was a beloved and influential peer to writers including Neil Gaiman, Joe Walton, Ellen Kushner, James Rigney, better known as Robert Jordan, Jack Womack, and Daniel Abram. So why had so few people heard of him? Why wasn't anyone publishing his books? It would take me 18 months to answer my questions. My quest would bring me to the vast treasure trove of Ford's uncollected and unpublished writing. It would introduce me to friends and relatives of Ford who hadn't spoken to each other since his death in 2006. And, in an improbable ending worthy of a John M. Ford novel, my quest would in fact set in motion the long-delayed republication of his work, starting in the fall of 2020. I think at this point, you should go read the article for yourself if you're curious about how this played out. Suffice it to say that authors would be well served if they wrote a clear will, a will that allowed their work to continue being published. Too often, the estate of a writer seems to be suppressed by relatives or other inheritors. But in part thanks to Isaac Butler, that logjam has cleared for John M. Ford. Mr. Butler, if you happen to see this video, thank you. So today I'm going to be talking about a science fiction novel, Growing Up Weightless. But I do also have The Dragon Waiting, the one that was mentioned in the article. Someday I'll get to this novel. The two most common things you'll hear about Growing Up Weightless is one, that it owes a debt of gratitude to Robert Heinlein for The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. The setting for this novel is the moon, a free moon. Earth in the solar system has been populated as well, and now we have interstellar travel and discovery. The moon is a nation unto itself and is a transportation hub for the planets and for the interstellar travel. The second thing that you'll hear about this novel is that it's a Bildungsroman. That's a novel that deals with formative years of a young person, a coming-of-age story. This is one of those novels that's high on character and setting and less so on plot. It also has a very interesting structure. There are no chapters. There are no divides in the narrative. We have a main protagonist, Matt, who's a 13-year-old boy living on the moon. But every once in a while, there seems to be a seamless transfer of protagonist to perhaps his parents, or somebody else within the story, and then back to Matt. And it all happens because they're in the same room and the perspective changes. You might think of this as a one shot that goes on for a number of minutes in a movie or a TV show. Sometimes there's transitions in that one shot that you're not aware of, but it's seamless. It's like that in this novel. This structure made it a little bit frustrating when trying to find places to stop. Thankfully, it was only a 220-page long novel. So there's domes over craters, and there's also digging down deep into the moon. Matt's father is a bureaucrat in the water department, a high-up bureaucrat. Part of this story looks at the political structure of the moon and how it's separated from Earth. Matt's father says there's only 4 things that are required to be free: light, air, water, and people. But most of the story is transferred back to Matt. We see him and his friends playing games together. We have a couple prolonged passages of their shared world together, their gameplay. We also see young people feeling trapped on the moon. Where does their future lie? It may seem young to us, but at 13 they were starting to think of their future, where they would apprentice or where they would work. So the story follows Matt in this discovery of where he will go for his future. It's a story of family and friends, of anxiety over the future, and there is a resolution as Matt goes on a certain path into his future. This, as I said, is not a novel of plot. It's more about people. While I found the continuous narrative a little bit frustrating at the beginning, I fell into it, and I could follow along quite easily. There are a lot of idioms and descriptions that you need to just catch on to as you keep on reading. This is not a novel that stops and explains things very often. I thought the prose and structure was very interesting, but I did kind of crave more plot. I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10. Taking a look at the printing history for this novel, you can see how it went into obscurity. Bantam Spectra printed it in 1993 and had a second printing in 1994. This is the cover for those printings. In 1994 as well, we had an Easton Press printing, a signed edition. From 1994 to 2022, it was out of print. Thankfully, Tor Essentials was able to make a deal with the estate of John M. Ford. Once again, you can read about that in the article. And SF Masterworks began to print this book in 2022 as well. So there are 2 current options for you to purchase this book. There is a promise that more of John M. Ford's books will get back into print. So have you read John M. Ford? Which books would you recommend? What do you think about authors who go out of print because their estate isn't licensing their books? Do you know some other authors who've fallen into obscurity and why? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, keep reading.